at our Driving Success in Retail webinar. So optimizing processes with accounts payable automation. My name is Connor. I'm the partner account manager here at Lightyear, and I am joined by my fantastic colleague Yasmin Munro. She is our enterprise projects lead. Yas, do you want to talk a little more about your role here with us?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Connor. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. So I'm the enterprise projects lead here at Lightyear. I've got about 10 years of experience in operations management, implementing technologies and softwares, training clients on said softwares, and also process management and implementation and process change as well. So a lot of expertise and experience in the retail sector as well. I've worked with hundreds of retail customers on implementing accounts payable automation, but I've also been across things like payroll softwares, accounting softwares, and things like that. So any questions relating to technology, implementation, and training, feel free to throw my way. And I'll hand over to Harrison to do a little bit of an introduction of himself and who Red Drop Group are.
Yeah, thanks, Yasmin. Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name's Harrison. I'm the finance manager at the Red Drop Group. Our group is a group of 28 supermarkets across Victoria and southern New South Wales, both metro and regionally. I've been with the business for about 2 years now, working in the finance and accounting team, working on a lot of changes both within finance and operationally as well. So Lightyear being one of those projects we've been working on before my time at the Red Drop Group as well. I was working at Ernst & Young as well for 5 years in audit. So I've got a lot of experience across a wide breadth of different industries and clients from there, both in retail and other sectors, and also a wide breadth of different finance team knowledge as well that I brought to the Red Drop Group. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Harrison, for that in-depth dive into yourself and a bit about Red Drop. Before we go any further, I'd just like to do some quick housekeeping. We will be doing a question and answer at the end of this webinar. Any questions that you may have along the way, please hit up in your left-hand corner. You'll find a questions tab and you can type them in there. And we can either go to those at the end of this, or we'll be answering as well throughout, but through that chat as well. If you end up having to step away or leave this webinar early, you don't need to worry about that. We will be sending out a recording of this as well. Cool. Moving on, key challenges in retail. Yasmin, Harrison, do you want to talk, Harrison especially, do you want to talk more about some key issues and challenges that you were finding in retail when it came to accounts payable? And Yasmin, if you could just let us know a little bit more about I guess what we're seeing from other customers here at Lightyear as well.
Yep. I'll kick off with that, and then I'll pass over to you, Harrison, to get your thoughts as well. So I guess a lot of the key challenges that I'm hearing about at the moment across retail is a very high volume of invoices coming through that majority is being handled manually at the moment. So things like paper dockets, paper invoices coming through, people manually keying it into their accountancy software. It's taking up a lot of time. So for the larger organizations, the big groups with lots of locations, they have team members dedicated to doing things like this, where their time could be better spent elsewhere. And for the smaller, single store, single location operations, it's usually people like the owner, who clearly has better things to do than manually typing in invoices, which has a flow-on effect to the rest of the process. So things like delays in payments to the suppliers, which can negatively affect the relationship with the suppliers, getting put on hold, things like that. But also from a broader perspective, lack of visibility across the organisation on the invoices that they've got, what's been paid, what hasn't been paid, reporting aspects, things like that. And pricing is also a big one. So with the small sort of profit margins that there are across retail, any little pricing changes on products that they're receiving is quite a big manual check to see sort of, is this the price that we've agreed on? Are we being overcharged? Where can we tighten things up to save a bit more money? They're probably the biggest key challenges that I'm hearing about at the moment. And the fact that people, because they're so busy doing everything with running the store and the locations and things like that, they don't necessarily have the time to research better alternatives and put the time into implementing something that's going to automate it for them. What have you found, Harrison, from your experience with challenges across retail at the moment?
Yeah, our challenges were much the same as what you've just gone through there, Yasmin. So definitely when we're talking about the volume of invoices that go through our business, both currently and over the last couple of years, even during our growth period in our business, volume's always been a challenge to get on top of. Definitely, when you've got someone like us with an accounts team, that can process invoices, there's only a certain number of hours in the day in which you've got available to be able to keep doing that processing, plus do everything else that you need to from a finance and accounting team perspective. So definitely getting on top of that was a key priority, especially where in the past we've been receiving those documents as all paper-based invoices with the stock when it came in the back door. The process and procedure for us in the past to have to try and deal with that was to put those all through a scanner or even in some ways put them in an envelope and put it in the post box and send it back to our head office. So definitely not the ideal way of handling that high volume to then put administrative time on top of that to either scan it or send it back. So that was definitely a key challenge for us. The price changing and pricing errors piece is a big piece for us too. So when you think about the retail industry over the past 12, 24 months, with the inflation challenge going on currently and rising interest rates, suppliers are putting through 2, 3, 4 price rises a year where they would otherwise have maybe been doing that annually in the 5 to 10 years beforehand. So not only are we dealing with a higher volume of invoices, we're also dealing with invoices that are changing constantly too on their pricing. So it's been a challenge previously for our team to try and keep on top of that as well and make sure that that's getting reflected in our POS system with the unit cost changes, where that might have taken until a supplier sends through a price list with updated pricing previously, and that might have taken a month, 2 months, 3 months, depending on when the supplier sends that through. We're maybe getting on top of that a bit better at the moment, but definitely still a challenge. Outside of that, definitely manual entering of invoices has always been a challenge too, making sure we're keying invoices to the right departments and improving the quality of our reporting and financial reporting especially, and then also cutting down the time it takes from when the supplier first issues the invoice to when we've got it in our system as well, has always been a key challenge for us too, definitely.
Thank you very much for that, Harrison. Seems like, as far as a more of a manual accounts payable process, there are a lot of challenges there. Yasmin, we know that the process of implementing a new service can be a very daunting task. Do you want to run us through the implementation of accounts payable automation?
Yep, will do. So appropriate change management and project governance are really key to implementing any kind of process change, technology change, system change, anything like that. So what we've got up on the screen at the moment are sort of my key tips on very, very high level process to implement not just AP automation successfully, but any major process or technology change in your organization. So step number one, super important to identify and assign a project lead in your organization. So regardless of how much work is involved or how simple it might be, it's super important that that person is a subject matter expert in the area. So in the case of something like AP automation, you'd want your head of accounts or somebody in your accounts team that's well across what the current process is to basically be the champion for this change and lead the process the whole way through. And the next key step is doing a critical analysis of your current process and defining a new process. So what I mean by that is whatever your current process is for accounts payable, so your project lead should be doing a full analysis of what does that currently look like. Now, you might be organized enough to have it already laid out. You might have a workflow with steps and things like that in place with people assigned responsibilities for each different step, or you might have nothing in place and it might be in somebody's head at the moment. Either way, doing a critical analysis of each step in the process that you have currently to see, could this part be automated? Could this part be more efficient? And that will then help guide you to creating a new process that's going to work for your organization, saving people time, saving you money, but most importantly, making sure that the critical steps for your business are still maintained in your new process, which then supports the third step, which is defining your key requirements and researching solutions for the new technology that you're bringing on. So now that you've got a clear definition of what you want your ideal process to be, that can then give you sort of a checklist of what features you need in the new software, which then enables you to quickly research what's in the market and then tick off, does this provide what I need? Approvals, for example, integration to your accountancy software, for example, things like that. And that way you can narrow down your list and actually choose the right solution that meets your business's needs. Once you've chosen your solution and you've decided to go ahead, that's when employee and supplier communication and training comes into play. So super important to make sure that you're communicating with your internal staff that are affected by the change, that the change is coming, to expect it to, that their process that they're used to is going to change. Obviously, training on the new system and what they need to follow moving forwards is important as well. But it's also important to not forget about your suppliers because they are involved in this process as well, just as much as your employees are. And maintaining good communication lines with your suppliers helps the transition to be really seamless and straightforward. Because they're not interacting with the system as such, it's not much of a change. All you really need to do is just notify them you need to change from what you're doing here to what you're doing over here. But once that's all done, so in the monitor and adjust phase, you're essentially you've gone live with the new process, you've gone live with the new technology, and you still need to make sure that your expected improvements and efficiencies that you define down here, you're actually getting from the software and from the new process. So in the research of solutions, I'd recommend it's important to also factor in that you might need to tweak your process once you're actually live and working. Sometimes people find what they thought theoretically would work, they actually want something slightly different. So keeping an open mind in that sense and monitoring that you're getting the most out of the new process, the most out of the new software, and being able to tweak the process or, turn features on or off in the software to actually accommodate your business needs and taking in feedback from your employees as well. So your accounts team, your approvers, things like that. You want to be making sure that they're actually saying this is heaps easier than what it was before. We're saving time. Or even if they need more training, just making sure that you're across those needs and what your team is saying, because that way you can ensure that when you close out the whole project and the implementation, you've ticked all the boxes, it's successful, and there shouldn't be any need for major changes in the future. It's just business as usual from that point onwards. So I guess from your perspective, Harrison, because I know me and Harrison worked together on implementing Lightyear at Red Drop Group. We probably followed some of these steps and not all of them 100%. But from inside Red Drop Group's perspective, what were the key sort of takeaways for you, or what were the important steps to make sure it was successful for you guys?
Yeah, well, definitely we took the approach of taking baby steps in whatever we did roll out. So, even though we're a multi-store operator group, the equation doesn't change if we were a multi-store owner or we were a single mum and dad family operator. In terms of, we were conscious that any change like this needed to take time, and there's a lot of stakeholders in the business that needed to get across what we were trying to do with invoice processing in general. So because it does touch along so many areas of the business, from the back office to whoever's working out on the floor, dealing with invoices and stock coming in, and then flowing up the chain to our accounts team and operations even. There was definitely, in our mind, when selecting the right solution for us, that the solution needed to make sure it was making the lives better of everyone in that value process, and maybe not just trying to fix the financial holes and worry about operations and everyone else who's got to interact with the system afterwards. So definitely in following the implementation steps on this slide, when I think about how we were defining our process and researching solutions, it maybe came at the same time for us when we were looking at what was out there. Well, I suppose we personally got referred to Lightyear ourselves and found Lightyear maybe halfway through our process even of doing our research, when considering what else was out there available that was wider, that worked with the systems and software that we use. But definitely for other retailers out there, that proposition might be a bit simpler if say you're just using Myob or Xero, which Lightyear does interact fairly easily with. So definitely in that space, there's a lot of different solutions out there for Myob and Xero based functions. But we were pretty dead set keen on Lightyear once we saw the functionality of it straight away, and then it was all about making sure it ticked the boxes of what we needed out of the system. So it was really to move all of our invoice processing, to cut out paper-based processing and scanning completely, to a digital solution that was easy for both our finance team but also operationally at each store to use as well. So a key item for us was making sure it was easy to use for our store team members, because they're the ones that have ultimately got to approve invoices for any store orders that they're doing at a localized level. So especially for a lot of direct suppliers that we allow our stores to engage with, who may need to send a digital copy of an invoice, it's very much on the store to approve those invoices and make sure what's coming through on their invoices is correct, as much as the finance team then being able to process it for payment later down the track. So once we were comfortable Lightyear ticked those boxes, then it was about making sure we then set out, I suppose, a process where we can go slowly rolling out Lightyear across our stores in groups at a time. That allowed us to break up communications with the suppliers as well, let them know that on this date we're transitioning these group of stores. Then a month down the track, we'd do another group, and then another group again, until we got the whole group done within the space of maybe 2 to 3 months. So A lot of the feedback that we got at the time from suppliers was that they were appreciative of the fact that we broke it up. So definitely that was a good learning that we found out of the process, that taking it slowly not only helps us make the transition internally and get everyone trained up the function, but definitely allowed the supplier to keep up pace with us and make sure that they were changing email addresses in their systems, testing to make sure that they were generating the right documents and that it was coming through correctly on our end for processing. So by the time that we got to that monitor and adjust stage, all the bugs and irons had been sort of tweaked out, and we were really just making sure that all the suppliers were sending in documents when required.
Harrison, that's fantastic, and thank you for sharing. What were some other really impactful results from the implementation of Lightyear and translating these into numbers for us? And most importantly, how did it affect the day-to-day lives of your accounts team?
Yeah, so from an accounts team perspective, it definitely saved a lot of the processing time in terms of compared to the old system that we were using, cutting down on, I suppose, when we think about processing, it's the actual making sure that the full documents come through and you're not missing anything originally, but then also making sure that it's picked up all the header details of the supplier, the correct dates, the correct invoice numbers, any totals, especially ones that are either inclusive or exclusive of GST. So definitely the difference we saw from that perspective was a pretty drastic change in processing time from one system to the other, whereby we're able to get through a lot more volume of invoice than what we otherwise were doing in our old system. So definitely from that perspective, that was probably the biggest time saving. From a store member team perspective, where we were asking our store team members out in the back office or at the back door to collate paper invoices together and then slave over a scanner for a couple of hours either each day or a couple of times a week, we were able to remove that off their plate completely once we were able to get all the suppliers that we engage with sending a PDF invoice into Lightyear itself. All of a sudden, that was 2 or 3 hours back in the day of either our back office manager or whoever's looking after invoicing at some of our smaller stores, where they could then use that time to maybe engage with customers with any assistance needed out on the floor, cleaning up, or any other replenishment tasks of putting in orders to suppliers or customer service that was required. So definitely that time can't be discounted either. That's definitely just as valuable as the time saved by the accounting team in processing. Outside of that, in terms of decreasing the time for manual entry, we're definitely finding in our time with Lightyear since implementing it across all of our stores, we're having to touch invoices a lot less as well. So with the ability to be able to map items to specific departments and let Lightyear hold that for future invoices, it means that we're getting a lot of the entry right the first time with minimal input from a human. So we're getting invoices through sometimes without touching it a lot quicker, and then ones that do need to get touched are the exception and not the rule, I suppose. So definitely a lot of time saved in that instance. And then even just being able to search for invoices too after the fact. So once an invoice is processed, in traditional methods where you've got a hard copy or you've scanned it, you might have gone and stamped it with a processed stamp, written a date on it and signed it off or something, and then gone and filed it in a box ready to be archived, which only really helps serve the accounts team, I suppose, if they needed to dig that up later on, or if we ever got audited by the ATO. Whereas now we've got it all in a web browser-based system with Lightyear. That information is now open to anyone in the business if they need to go back and find that invoice later on. So it's not only just for the use of checking to see what's gone through our general ledger, but it's also useful for So if our store managers wanted to see if a specific item's come through on an invoice or how much that item's been ordered in the past and what the quantities were, or if our operations team wanted to query how often we're putting in orders with a specific supplier, all that information is now available to them as well in a way that's easy to engage with. We can either print that out in an Excel report, or if they're looking for the original invoice image, they can download a copy of that easily themselves as well. So they can definitely get to that information a lot quicker than they have otherwise previously with our system.
Cool. Thanks so much. I guess in summary then, a lot of the benefits that Red Drop Group found by implementing Lightyear were due to a few key features that Lightyear has, but also the reasons why AP automation is crucial for retail success is things like time and cost savings. You've got more accurate reporting. We do have integrations to most of the major accountancy softwares as well, so you don't need to worry about where your data's going, how it's getting there, things like that, and compliance and security. So as Harrison mentioned, things like ATO audits and all that sort of stuff, you don't need to worry about with having Lightyear on board, because we actually just have an auditor access to your account. You just grant your auditor access. They have read-only access to all the documents that have ever come through your account, and auditors generally love us because of that. It makes their life much simpler. They're not having to go on site and traipse through boxes of paper invoices and things like that. But also, as Harrison mentioned, increased efficiencies and accuracy with your invoices, streamlined approval workflows, which then leads to faster payments and your suppliers are happier. You've got improved visibility into product costings, financial data, things like automated statement reconciliation makes things simpler and easier as well. You can communicate with your team across the platform, and the team doesn't have to be beholden to their computer because we've got things like the mobile app that you can see there. So they're able to review invoices, approve invoices on the go, and some more of the beneficial features that I mentioned before. Things like automated price checking as well. So if you are overcharged by a supplier, you'll see it on the invoice straight away before you even approve it. Again, saving on those profit margins there and saving your team the time so that they can focus on more value add aspects of their role as well. That's pretty much the features in summary. Connor, did you have, oh yeah, you've shared a poll there for everyone to see what would actually be helpful.
I sure have.
Cool. I'll hand over to you, Connor, for a bit of a Q&A session, just conscious of people's time. Don't want to go too far over and take up too much of everyone's time.
Yeah, thank you, Ez, and again, thank you, Harrison, for all that insight so far. It's been incredible to listen to how much of a positive effect it's been on the Red Drop Group so far, and we'll get more into that right at the very end as well. But for now, anyone attending, please feel free to shoot through any questions that you may have for Harrison or Yasmin. I've actually just had one pop up already. This is from Brad. Is there any automated claim process on shortages, price errors back to the supplier?
Do you want me to take that, Connor?
Oh, I think so. You put your hand up first, Yasmin.
Yes, it's not 100% automated. You do have to interact with it somewhat, but essentially what happens is you've got the price checker up on your screen. So you're looking at an invoice. One of the items is flagged as red, meaning that you've been overcharged. what you can do is you can email the supplier directly from the invoice, so within the app. That will send the supplier a copy of the invoice. You can write whatever message you want to write to them saying, hey, we agreed $1 for this and you've charged us $2. That then moves the invoice out of the normal approval workflow into this disputed section. So it's a bit of a flag that there's an issue with this, something needs to be fixed, so the supplier can send you back either a credit note or a corrected invoice, and then the process continues there. So it's not, the system's not going to yell at the supplier for you, but there is an automated in-app process to cover things like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Yaz. I've just had another question come through. I guess you could probably, Yaz and Harrison could both answer this one. How long does implementation take?
Well, in Harrison's case, they decided, they're a very large group, so they decided to sort of drip feed it and roll it out gradually. I guess the short answer to that is it depends on your organization. We can start implementation with as little as a day's notice from our side. But depending on the size of the group, you might want to start off by implementing one location, figure out your processes like what Harrison did, really fine-tune the processes, the features that you want to use, things like that. And then once you've got that bedded down for that one location, then it's quite easy to then just replicate that across the rest. So it depends on your approach. It could be as little as a couple of days notice and we can get started. Usually end-to-end, I'd say for one location would be anywhere from sort of 2 to 4 weeks where we look after the account for you, we do all the heavy lifting, and then at the end of that time, everything's pretty much automated for you and you're good to run with it yourselves. Would you add anything to that, Harrison?
Yeah, I think that's a fair timeline. I suppose, yeah, you should be able to say that, oh, yeah, we can do it in a week and we'll be right to go and the suppliers will just do it. But I think to be fair to yourself, if you are looking at a solution like this, but also fair to your suppliers to get them across what they need to change on their end to send invoice documents in via email. Yeah, definitely 2 to 4 weeks is more reasonable. There's also the consideration of the accounting system you use as well. So we made life more difficult for ourselves because we use a version of Sage that doesn't have the direct integration that Payable or Xero have. So we have to do a bit more legwork to add in our supplier information and our GL accounts and whatnot. But even then, that wasn't too much extra work for those that are knowledgeable on what they need to download in that instance. Most accounting softwares allow you to do a dump of that in an Excel spreadsheet to be able to upload somewhere else fairly easily. But yeah, definitely, I'm not sure if Yasmin or Connor, you're able to talk to more about that for Payable or Xero customers, but definitely it's a much easier, smoother process if you're using one of those accounting packages.
Yeah, so for the bigger end of town, Payable, Xero, QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, there's a lot of them. I'll be here all day if I mention all of them, but the ones that have a full API integration, it's literally just the click of a button to log in to, say, Xero, for example, press connect from Lightyear, takes you to log into Xero, choose your account, and then it's a full two-way integration. All your code, your tax codes, account codes, suppliers, all of that from Xero are in Lightyear. You click a button to export your documents from Lightyear to Xero, goes across. It's much simpler. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Harrison. I'm very conscious of the fact that it is a Tuesday afternoon and we are only a few weeks out from Christmas. And so I think, now is the perfect time to say a huge thank you to Harrison for joining us today. We really, really appreciate your time and all your insights, both into RedDrop and then also your experience with Lightyear. Is there anything you would like to say before to sign off?
Yeah, no, just thanks to you guys for inviting me on and having a chat with how we've gone about it. Definitely, yeah, we've very much enjoyed our time using Lightyear so far. We keep getting comments even from our store managers how much they're raving about how much it's making their life easier. So if we can get that sort of comment from someone non-finance related working out at our stores, then that's only just a positive in our minds. So definitely we're reaping benefit from it absolutely at the moment. And yeah, definitely my email address is in the slide here, so I'm always open if anyone ever feels like reaching out and wanting to have a chat further and yeah, seeing how we're using it. I'd like to think that the proof's in the pudding sometimes with this stuff, so definitely where we can show it if you're ever thinking about implementing something like Lightyear, we're definitely an open book with this. We're happy to show how we're using it and how we're getting the benefit real life.
Mate, thank you very much for that, and a very, very kind offer as far as reaching out. Yasmin, thank you as well for joining me from just in the other room for today. Again, Harrison, thank you so much. And to everyone that attended today, thank you very much for your time. I have put up a little broadcast up on this as well. If you'd like to book your discovery call with us, please just hit the link there as well. Again, thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and have a fantastic festive season.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.